Megan Odegaard.
And John Behrens. How we got started is an interesting question. It goes back probably 10 plus years. But basically it started, I had made cider with friends, cider, beer, wine, all sorts of things with friends for a few years. And then I met you, I started dating, and you had planned a brewery, cidery, winery tour for my birthday. And we went around to a bunch of different places, and I guess each drink we had, we kind of got a little bit more and more brave, and it was kind of like, well, we make really good cider. Why can't we do something like this? And you just thought it was kind of a joke.
A drunken idea. Like, okay, keep joking, kids.
Right. Until the next morning, I had texted you, said check your email, and had come up with the name of the business. These are the pieces of paperwork we have to fill out. Filled most of them out. Like, just need you to sign these things, and we can make this happen. So
yeah.
Your joke is it's a hangover that's never ended, but
exactly.
That's sort of how we got started initially.
I always say, like, it's either the best or the worst hangover I've ever had, and I don't know which yet. The jury's still out.
Exactly. But basically, this property's been in my family for 150 years, going back to my great-great-grandparents coming over from Germany. So going back about 10 years ago, I had already purchased this property to keep it in the family after my grandparents had passed away. And so that was kind of the other piece of it was, well, we have the perfect place to do this. The property was originally an orchard. Why don't we turn it into like a fun little spot? And our thought was we could just make cider here on a couple weekends a month and just sell it to a few accounts around town and still have our full-time day jobs and everything.
Yeah, the hobby business that we thought we'd start.
Right. But it kind of...
I remember looking at the barn and being like, we'll never need this entire space. Like, we could just like rope off a little piece of it and get that.
That was just a small barn.
And that was in the small barn, and now we're bursting at the seams again.
So I think if you go back probably 5 or 6 years, we were a couple years into it actually being a business. We kind of reached this point where it was too big to be a hobby and too small to be a business. And so we kind of had to choose, like, which way are we going? I was still working my full-time regular job, but spending every night here and until you're about ready to pass out of exhaustion. Yeah, and go home, sleep for a couple hours, go to the regular job, focus on that, and then come back out here and do it all again. And did that for a couple of years.
And finally, I sort of staged a bit of an intervention with him. And I remember it clearly. It was Mother's Day of 2017, and it was like, all right, we've got to make a choice here. You can only do 2 jobs at 110% for so long, and so finally convinced you to quit your day job. We went out and got the biggest loan we could possibly afford, and got to work building our expansion.
I'd say more than we could afford, but biggest one we could get.
Okay, biggest one we could get.
Right.
Fair point. But no, I mean, even before that though, the investments in the property, I mean, when you look around now, it's pretty nice. I think it's beautiful. But I can remember when he first showed me the space, it was 4 barns that were fallen down on the property that we had to clean up. And even to get to the barn was another one that had fallen down. And so we spent that first year just picking the place up and turning it from this old abandoned farm into a state-of-the-art cidery. So that alone was a lot of work, and we had some trips to the emergency room and a lot of red tape, but we finally got there.
And then transitioning to now, what do your day-to-day operations look like compared to when you started?
So it's changed a lot, obviously. I do this full-time now, so it's a lot of work but a lot of fun at the same time. In some ways it feels like everything has changed, and in some ways it feels like nothing has changed. You know, you're still trying to figure out what's the better way to do whatever the process is. Is there anything we can do to improve things? What are new ideas of types of cider that we can offer? It's just, there's a lot more moving pieces now, but the general outlook is the same of what can we improve, what are our strengths, what can we kind of maximize to really continue to move the business forward, continue growing, that sort of thing.
And I think, that exercise right there is exactly what helped us get through COVID, of reinventing the business like 4 different times during that time period of, okay, what can we do? What can we do to improve upon within the rules and still offer a really exceptional experience for the customers that still were, wanting this place or an exceptional product that they got in their local grocery store or local liquor stores.
So there's basically two parts of the business. So one is the tap room, which will open April through December, Thursday through Sunday, and January through March is Friday through Sunday. And so that's people coming here, getting the full farmhouse experience, seeing where their cider is made, getting to see some of the people that help make it, and really understanding what makes us unique and different. And then the other piece of it is distribution. So we sell cider through two different distributors in Michigan, Alliance Beverage and Imperial Beverage. They then sell that to bars, restaurants, grocery stores across the entire state. And so that's where you'll see it, like on the shelves at a Spartan or Meyer, your favorite local corner shop, favorite restaurants, that type of thing. And that we sell in both cans and in kegs. So kind of two different revenue streams, but both super important, the tap room and distribution.
And I think the fun part for us with those is getting to see people actually enjoy your product or enjoy the space that you work so hard on. We've put in a ton of work into the tap room, but the first time I remember that we ever saw anybody drink our cider, we were all sort of like poking each other like, that person ordered our cider. And now, you see it a little more often, but it's still every time you just get really excited.
Yeah, and I'd say we put an equal amount of effort into distribution.
Absolutely.
As well, and really, we did that first before we even had a tap room. Our focus was exclusively on distribution, really getting the cider out there, getting people to experience something that is unique and different, and continues to be unique and different in terms of any other offerings. And so that's sort of how I think helped our overall success, is getting people. Some people love Farmhouse and never even been here, and the opposite is also true. There's also people that only buy Farmhouse from here. So it kind of takes both parts to make the wheel go round.
Especially, in the beginning it was all store tastings and things like that at your local liquor stores, and those were really fun to meet customers as well.
We still do.
And we still do a lot of those, and that's really fun.
What are some other ways you advertise?
We do a lot through social media. You're really good at that.
Thanks.
Instagram, Facebook, that sort of thing. A lot of just word of mouth. We've tried to provide a really great experience for people, and something that they're willing to want to tell others about, and kind of bring people with them.
Yeah, our thought is that as long as we're providing the best cider out there, or the best taproom experience out there, people are going to talk about it, and that's what we strive to do, is just be the best we can possibly be.
I think one of the challenges of operating a cidery is you're starting with a fruit. So oftentimes people want to pay a similar price for a cider as they would a beer, but not fully understanding the kind of cost differential that goes into that. One starts with water and other ingredients, but the other is fruit, and so you're kind of naturally at a higher price point. So I would say it's a lower margin business than a brewery is, and so that's one of our biggest expenses. Obviously, equipment and labor are equally as large. It's a unique skill set to be able to really understand how to make cider. It's kind of part like making beer, part like making wine, but part like neither of those. So labor is obviously key, and equipment, the same sorts of things apply, where it's part like making beer, part like making wine, but there's some nuances to it being cider. So that customization and unique types of equipment are also a very large expense to get started and to continue to grow.
What are some ways that you guys plan on expanding and growing?
Obviously, I think in any business, the goal is always to continue to try to grow. I think for us, it's continuing to do what we've already done, which is really focus on putting out the best product that we possibly can, something that we feel is different than what other people are doing. The cider industry is a very small industry, and so I think there's room for a lot of different types of cider. And I think if all the different cideries continue to kind of go in slightly different directions and show people the true diversity of cider, I think that'll help grow the industry for everyone. And I think that's our hope, both for ourselves and the industry, is if we continue to do things that are different, it will help improve and grow our sales. But that's our hope for the rest of the industry as well, because that's really with beer, when craft beer kind of took off, was when you could go to your local restaurant and there was 3 or 4 tap handles of craft beer, different styles, and maybe somebody didn't like stouts, but they loved IPAs, and you can do just as many different things with cider. And so really getting to focus on that and hopefully grow the entire industry And the same thing goes with the tap room here. Continuing to provide good experience, I think is going to be key.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think having that same diversity of ciders available when we're at there, when people come to our tap room is also really important, so that you can convince people. My favorite thing to do is to convince people that they actually do like cider, because how often do we hear, oh, I don't like cider, and it's okay, I'll just have a water or something, and you're like, just try this. And once they do try it, it might take a couple of different ones to try, but there is always a cider out there for each person. I've never failed to find something that someone likes. It's just, I think that's our biggest goal as an industry. And John's the president of the Michigan Cider Association, and then also the treasurer of the American Cider Association and the Midwest chair for it. So he's really involved and sees a lot of that big macro cider trends and what needs to happen. And I think you're right. As long as people keep getting creative with what we're putting out and doing things that are different than their competitors, we'll continue to grow the overall pie and show people that America's first drink can still be their favorite drink. That's the goal.
Absolutely.
And then can you talk about the successes or problems?
There's a lot of challenges. If you go back to, we're still dealing with kind of, I don't think you can really blame it on COVID at this point, but some of the after effects of that in terms of supply chain issues continue to be ongoing. There's been a lot of issues with cans for several years now, especially with the rise of kind of everything being put in a can, including things that didn't used to be, like wine, lots of ready-to-drink cocktails, even water now. There's only so much aluminum in the world, and the supply chain is designed in such a way to kind of meet that demand. If you add a large percentage of increased demand to that, and you even strip out all the effects of COVID, there's a huge gap between that demand and the supply to fill it. And so there's been a lot of work the last couple of years to try to increase that supply, but there's still a long ways to go. So that's one thing. I think the equipment in general in the cider industry, you mentioned cider as America's oldest drink. It's also true that it's sort of the newest drink at the same time. And so one of the challenges for the industry is there isn't necessarily an answer to every question. But that's also what makes cider so exciting. It's not like some of these other industries that everything has been tried and the answer is as easy as just finding the right person that can tell you that answer. In cider, there's a lot of things that aren't known, and everyone's still trying to kind of figure those out. So I think it's naturally a very challenging industry because it's a newer industry. So those are a couple of things, but there's no shortage of challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, both of us coming from the corporate world, this has been a big change for us. Going from, you have a set schedule of, okay, I have meetings at this time and this time and this time. In this industry, especially when you're making things and making things that have living creatures in them, yeast, it's not an industry that is perfect for an appointment. So it's certainly taken me a while to know that John is going to be home when he's home. And that's when I know I should have, that I'll be ready to go with dinner or whatnot, or we can hang out, but you're not on a schedule anymore at this point. Yes. You have an idea of what you want to accomplish that day, but it's very different from your 9 to 5.
The cider and the business drive your schedule and your availability as opposed to your Outlook calendar.
What are 3 tips of advice that you guys have for other entrepreneurs?
Don't think too much before you start your business. Just dive in, because if you try to overthink it, obviously you should have your business plan and you should think about whether or not this is even viable. But if you start to overanalyze, thinking about whether this is going to be something that you really want to do, you're probably never going to jump into anything. I think had we known how difficult this would have been, I don't know that we would be here.
Yeah. On the flip side, though, once you reach a certain point, you're like, well, there's no choice but to make this a success now. We're in so far, gotta find a way to make this work. I would say the other piece would be to really do your research ahead of time about what it is that you're thinking of getting into. Trends come and go, things change, and the business itself, no matter how small, is tough to change quickly. And so really be sure that this is something, it's sort of the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Put in the work on the front end to figure out that there's really demand here, this is something that you really want to do, that even when everything that you could possibly imagine could go wrong, that you still want to wake up the next morning and like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna tackle whatever these problems are, because you'll have days like that. You'll have days that are great also. But it's really when you have some of those bad days and you have a few of them in the row that you need to make sure this is something that you are truly passionate about.
I think going along that same line, having a partner to start it with or to be in business with, man, that's saved us several times, because there have been times where I've wanted to give up and John hasn't, or John's wanted to give up and I haven't. And that combination has helped us also stick through some of the tougher times. But it's also, I mean, when you have those amazing moments where everything comes together and it's like the best day, it's so much more fun to have that with a partner.
Can you tell us like why people should drink your cider, why they should buy your cider?
Well, I mean, I think they're the best cidery out there, but
There's a lot of good cider out
there's
there.
a lot of really great cider out there, and we're friends with them actually. So for me, Farmhouse is a band of friends that decided to go against the odds, create cider that we want to drink, and other people have also apparently liked it. We never really got into it to make, the next most popular drink out there. It's a specific cider that is for people who love dry ciders, or we have different ciders, I suppose, for every person. But
We make cider for people that love cider and people that hate cider. They just don't know that they love it yet. And that's sort of what you were alluding to earlier with, there's something here for everybody. I think the other things that make us unique, I think you get the best sense of that coming out here. Walking around today, you see kind of we're a very small group of people that are friends and coworkers, but also family. My dad was here earlier when we were just starting this interview, working on things. We've had our first delivery driver was my grandpa coming out of retirement. He'd been retired for a long time. Things like that are, I think, what makes us unique, but also the only way that we're able to make this successful. And getting to have people come out here and experience that and really latch on to that special feeling of what Farmhouse is. I think you get a taste of that picking it up off the grocery store shelf, but you get an even deeper appreciation and taste for that coming out here and trying it. And then obviously the products themselves, we've hit on it repeatedly, but doing things that are unique and that are different. We started out really focused on dry ciders, something that you couldn't find widely available in a can in particular. We still tend to lean a little bit more that direction, but as you said, there's really something here for everybody. And it's really about just changing minds. People that don't think they like cider, come try something, you will change your mind.
one thing I'm very proud of is that our tap room is about 50-50 new customers versus repeats or our regulars. And I think that goes to show people are telling their friends about us, but also that we have such a loyal community. Honestly, our community has been really fantastic about supporting us, all of our regulars that we've had for the last 7 years.
Yeah, we're currently widely available just in Michigan. Eventually hope to add some other states to that. But we also ship online, direct to consumer. So people that have come to Michigan, tried our cider, loved it, can get it delivered directly to their doorstep in about 36 states, every state that is legal. They can just order it from farmhousecider.com. So that's something that's unique and different about us also, that we're able to be in so many states while still being quite small.
How many different styles?
That we've made in total, I don't know. We generally distribute about 7 different types at a time, and we have 12 different types on tap at any given time. A lot is the answer to the question, how many have you made?
Definitely more than 100. I mean,
yeah, we do a lot of
hundreds.
small batches of things that we're kind of trying. Some work, some don't. We pour no shortage of things down the drain, but that's how you discover the next great thing.
What's been your top seller?
For us, it changes throughout the year. I think there's other places that it's like they're known as this one thing. For us, it kind of depends on the weather, it seems, whether people want something more fruity, or if it's like January, February, people want something more dry, that we're not drinking or we're giving up anything with any residual sweetness.
We try to encourage dry cider January, right?
Yeah.
So some people maybe just don't drink. We just say, just do a dry cider instead. It's an apple. It's actually fairly healthy.
Well, and yeah, if you're looking at truly, healthy alcohol, which is itself kind of a funny thing, but something that people care about, and there are certainly more healthy and less healthy types of alcoholic beverages. And cider, especially dry cider, is going to be just about as healthy as you can get, and having it still be alcohol.
I get a lot of people at store tastings. People will ask me like, I'm keto or I'm diabetic, and our dry cider is always really good for that because it doesn't have any sugar in it. All the sugar is fermented away from the apples. There's no sugar left. That is it. Been in business, it'll be 8 years this March from the first day that we sold any of our cider, which was just 2 little mom and pop local liquor stores here in Grand Rapids, and then obviously grew from there. But still always love going back to those places.
Can you say from start to now what percent you've grown?
I think it's sort of our goals have kind of changed, along the way too. So like initially it was being a handful of accounts, and so that was sort of the initial goal. Whereas then we, partway through kind of had to make that choice of, is this a hobby or is this a business? And so I think everything kind of changed at that point. That's when we did our expansion. And so it's not really an apples to apples comparison. Start to finish. I don't know the answer to the question to begin with, but it's sort of, the just continuous improvement, basically. So a little bit more, continue to improve the cider, the diversity of cider, that sort of thing.
Like you said, so we started out thinking this would be a hobby business, like never expecting for people to come out here to have have this be a full-time job for us. So we limited it and we said, we'll just get to a certain number of customers and we'll just be done. And that way it's something we can do on the weekends. So when we completely changed the business plan from going from this hobby business to going to a full-time job, like the goals change significantly, and obviously you have to increase your production to be able to make this a full-time facility. So
our goal is just simply to grow every year. Sometimes you're more successful than others, but that's sort of our goal.